Aleksander Czeszkiewicz. Welcome back to Let's Get Freaky podcast. Thank you so much for coming back, brother. How are we?
Thanks for having me on again. I think we'll continue with all of the biggest and the most interesting topics as the last time.
Absolutely. Yeah, we went everywhere last time. Your knowledge is incredible. You know, you're a very young man. You sent me your fantastic book, which I mentioned last time. Déjà Vu. Has everything already been? Yep. Snap. Look at that. Fantastic book. I honestly can't recommend this book enough. You sent this over just before Christmas, and it is a fantastic read. Super interesting. And I'll say it again, you were 17 when you wrote this book, which it blows my mind. 17, man. You know?
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
It's incredible. It's incredible, brother. So you're doing some fantastic work. You are a researcher in hidden history, alternative history that I think I said this before, but most people today will be on the fence of history as we know it in the history books is probably not what happened. Like, let's face it, we know humans, the winner tells the story, they change history, and we've seen that happen in a very short amount of time. So going back hundreds and thousands of years, can you imagine how our history has been changed and manipulated, and obviously the fact that we possibly got so far advanced in the past, got wiped out by the Great Flood, whatever it was, and had to restart again. You know, I think most people are in that camp that is what happened, and our history is far more magical and crazier than we can ever imagine, really.
Yes, I agree with you. Not only, the winners write how history happened, but also, what survived till our times. This is, how we interpret history. Mm-hmm. And not much is left from the most ancient times, unfortunately. So we just, make assumptions based on scarce evidence.
Yeah, we've got tiny little snippets of evidence that we kind of, and hopefully we're constantly finding more. That's the cool thing. Like,
but we'll never find everything for sure, because everything is degrading, decomposing, and basically we see that every day, that things are not lasting for very long. So without any kind of extrasensory methods, spiritual methods, or non-physical methods, or let's say time travel, we can never fully reconstruct how our history happened.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying we're never going to get the answers? Is that what you're telling me?
Within the materialistic paradigm, yes, unfortunately.
Yeah, man. But it's fun trying to put the pieces together. We're definitely getting more clues. We're definitely, the human civilization is aging. We find some evidence that maybe we were a lot older than we thought, and then we find more evidence, and we're like, no, we're actually...
Every day, stuff just keeps getting older and older, and it's fun. I started, as I mentioned during our last conversations, I started studying last year, and the more and more I'm studying the official narrative, the more I see confirmation in what I've been talking about for years, and with confirmation for all my, some people would call crazy theories, or very controversial to say the least, and I see more and more confirmation is coming out every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's guys like you, the work that you're putting in. I mean, so many people are interested in this stuff, like myself, but just haven't got the time to look into everything. And and it's there's so much to it, and it's wild, and it's fascinating, man. Last time we spoke, we ended on me asking you a question that I ask a lot of people: paranormal experiences, supernatural experiences, and you mentioned that there was something there that we was going to go into in this episode today. So should we kind of kick off with that? What was your spiritual?
Yes, let's go. Before I will talk about my own personal experiences, I think it's good to understand how modern science works, why it, degrades any kind of non-physical, paranormal, spiritual as just some kind of fairy tales or illusions, hallucinations of our minds, because actually there is no single definition of what science is, but we can point to some aspects of, let's say, work or research that may be called scientific if it has all the ticks with all of these assumptions. And some of these assumptions are, for instance, one, rationalism. So science is always based on rationalism, which means that everything in science needs to be rational and understandable by our own minds. So everything that is irrational, we can say, non-logical, illogical, is beyond the scope of science. So science only applies to what is rational. And I think that the basic argument that can debunk this, that science will be the ultimate truth, is that just as we have plenty of evolutionary adaptations, like emotions, like that we like this kinds of foods, or we like this kind of things that are evolutionary good for us, I think that our rational minds, brains can be also an evolutionary adaptation, but just on a higher level than casual animals or even casual monkeys and other species. And I think that still it may be very limited to understanding the entire nature. Just as our perception is limited, we don't see, all the spectrum of electromagnetic waves, we do not hear, every frequency, and we know very well that other animals can, see different kind of spectrums of colors, can hear different kind of frequencies. I think that the same can with the rational mind, that it can be a little bit higher than animals, but still it may not be evolutionary good for us as humans to understand everything about nature. And I think that's why we're limited within this materialistic rational paradigm, and that's why very often spiritual experiences or mystical experiences are hard to describe by using casual words or casual rational explanations. And that's why they're often very mysterious, mystical, and something out of this world, because maybe then we are shutting down our rational minds and going beyond that. So actually, when it comes to spirituality, which is often degraded by science, as I said, just to hallucinations and illusions of our minds, actually these things should not be even within the scope of science. Science is only about the rational, and again, another thing that I will explain right now is materialism, naturalism, but in a moment. But what I want to say is that philosophically speaking, or let's say methodologically speaking, science should not be applied to anything that is non-physical, irrational, spiritual, mystical. Just as we, probably learned at schools different kinds of numbers, and we have that, okay, this is this group of numbers, this is the bigger group of numbers that is within this group, the domain as it is professionally called. The domain of science is one, rational, and the second one, only natural things. So things outside of this are not actually within the scope of science. It's very important to understand, because plenty of skeptics, plenty of debunkers, these huge shouters on the internet who say, oh, science is the only way and everyone else is snake oil salesman, everything is hoax, etc. These people do not understand it, or just ignore this fact that there are things beyond the scope of science, and science at its current form would never be about the entire reality. And the second one I've mentioned is naturalism, very often also called materialism, but the broader term is naturalism, which basically means that everything that is natural, so everything physical, like growing of plants, growing of our bodies, let's say birth of people and things like that, everything natural needs to have also natural source. It cannot have supernatural source, like let's say God Zeus is causing thunders, because we know that thunders have natural causes. So it basically, this second assumption basically denies everything supernatural. So everything supernatural is beyond science. So if we assume that, let's say, we have soul, spirit, or something supernatural about ourselves, or paranormal experiences, these are again beyond the paradigm of science. So science shouldn't apply there again. So shouldn't be able even to try to debunk this phenomena, because they are outside of its scope. So these are the two most of the important things to understand the difference between spiritual, natural, science, paranormal, because if we understand that, we will see that science is very, very limited. Just as, let's say, it's just about, let's say I'm biologist, and I know that, okay, our bodies are, let's say, physical bodies, but these biological things are much more advanced than just physics, and physicians would say, oh, it's just atoms and stuff like that. So it's very, very limited. And when it comes to my experiences, as I think I've said the last time, parallel to when I started researching my book and actually asking questions, what if what we are being taught about our history isn't 100% right? Parallel to that, I had also spiritual journeys, spiritual awakening of some sorts, and I often compare it that, my research in history, alternative history was, the hardcore, let's say, masculine part of myself, research, writing, denying things, being a rebellious one. And, parallel to that, this, spiritual experience, awakening of some sort was the feminine part. So, going on both sides, not just be limited to one, feminine, more like intuition, more like spirituality and stuff like that. So it's very, interesting that, I at the same time had these two parallel paths. Maybe, one triggered the other or vice versa. So it already started there. And before, I would say I was like 15 or 16 at that time, maybe 14, no, but 15, 16. Before that, I would consider myself maybe not a hardcore atheist, but for sure an agnostic. So maybe there is God, but I don't see good evidence for that, so maybe not. And with, an inclination towards atheism, that maybe there is, nothing beyond matter, just evolution, just illusions of our minds. Before that, for many years, I've been like that. So it's an interesting story, because very often skeptics are saying that, oh, people are spiritual because from a very young age they believe in, religion, spirituality, and they get so programmed that, they cannot comprehend that it may be all wrong, so it's bad for them to deny everything they've been learning from a very young age. But in my case, it was a completely different route, from being atheistic, agnostic, into becoming spiritual. And I was very, very logical about everything. I was very, I was skeptical about these things, people saying, oh, these are spiritual auras, law of attraction, and stuff like that. I was manifesting. I was very, very skeptical about that. I was very logical. I was always a good student, good at maths, physics and stuff like that, history also. But, I was very rational about things. But I started having such experiences that I couldn't explain just by casual logical thinking. They were out of my paradigm. I was a big brain, let's say. I don't want to brag about, but I was very into science, physics, biology, evolution. I was, thinking about these huge concepts, logic, rationality. But then, these things were out of my ability to explain them just rationally on terms of just, logic, that my mind is just making these things up, that these are just random coincidences and not synchronicities from spirituality. And it started, I would say, in dreams. I was interested again in dreams, but from physical perspective. At that time I was very heavy into like fitness, sports and stuff like that. So I knew that, dreams are very important for our brain, that, sleep is very important. And I started having very crazy dreams that were again out of explanation, but I would back then accept that, okay, things in dreams can be crazy even on materialistic terms, let's say. This may be huge hallucinations, but I started having what I would consider prophetic dreams, but again, not like huge ones that, oh, here are lottery winning numbers and take them, no. Or, oh, you will be this in future, or this is your career path, or you will be this person, no. These were such minor things that they were making me crazy as a rational person in real life. Because, for instance, I had a dream of meeting a certain person in a certain random location, and this person in the dream was saying to me some random things, not very important, like it was casual interaction at school, let's say. And then the next day, the next week, I had this interaction, in the exact same spot. And in this moment, I had this like strange feeling of déjà vu, just as my book is called. And this person, I'm meeting this person at the exact same place, even, being oriented in the same, let's say, direction as in the dream. And this person is telling me exact same things as in the dreams. I would say this was impossible to explain materialistically rational, that it's just a coincidence. What, my mind was such a genius that it could think of what people are saying. No, these were completely random things, and they were out of, I would say, my paradigm of thinking, because they were from the future. After some exams that I didn't know about, random exams, it was something that I've never experienced before, and I couldn't rationally imagine that in my dream. And it started, and again, week after week. Let's say in 1 year it was like 8 or 12 incidents like that, and I was, it was shocking for me as a rational person, very into science, into, let's say, this grinding mentality. At that time I was a teenager. Okay, let's do that, let's win these competitions and stuff like that, let's get into sports, get jacked, strength training and stuff like that. I was like, what the hell is going on? And this started my spiritual journey. I was, wait a second, I think that there is something to what these people on the internet or on the other kind of people are talking about, that there is some kind of spirituality, synchronicity. And I started parallel to the historical research. I started researching spirituality very, very crazily and very, very intensively. And I also, when I was, again, about 15 or 16 years old, I started remembering things from my childhood, how strange phenomena actually were happening back there when I was like 4, 5, or 6 years old. And I started remembering that, before being this rational, person, I was very sensitive. I was having strange phenomena. I remember seeing and hearing different things that weren't there. Like at night, I was very scared. I was hearing some things like they were happening in like different room in my house, but I knew that there was no one there. Everyone was sleeping, and seeing some different kinds when I was falling asleep. Remember when I was 3, 4 years old, about different like orbs, like energies or something that was, beyond the physical realm. And back there again, every kid is scared of the dark or of some ghosts or of some monsters, so maybe this is casual. And we know that, science proves that we have some kind of instincts, to sometimes create hallucinations about that. There is a materialistic part for sure about that, but I started remembering that there were things out of, again, rationality in that. And I said, wait a minute, maybe I was not like a crazy kid just being scared, but maybe there was something real to that. And then, when I started researching all of that spirituality, having more and more these spiritual experiences, I started having these synchronicities, like all day, every day, I'm checking out my phone at random times a day, and 11:11, 2:22 and stuff like that. And I was, wait a minute, there is too much of that. And even, I said, okay, maybe our brains are so intelligent, our subconscious, not like conscious mind, but our unconscious, subconscious mind may be so intelligent, so huge, such a gigantic computer that maybe, it's just, calculating in my mind these numbers. So maybe I have like an instinct to check my phone and check the hour. And maybe, it's just my subconscious mind calculating all of that, maybe. And this trigger to check the phone is actually subconscious. So I thought about that still on rational terms. Mm-hmm. But then, it was so random. I remember, I was talking to a friend at school, and then, this person was just, having like phone right here. And I remember, and seeing on his phone, like he was not using it, just, holding it casual here with, the screen bright. And I remember saying 2:22 or 11:11. I was, it must have been beyond just rationality. Mm-hmm. So I stopped, being so, I was still being rational, but I stopped, considering it as just hallucinations and stuff like that. So this was start of my, experiences, and I actually discovered that I was very, very sensitive to this spiritual phenomena, and I started rediscovering my hidden abilities of some sorts. I remember in the middle high school, I was looking at people's auras and actually seeing things in there, maybe not like very precise thing that, you're having cancer or you're ill with that, or you're having bad energy, but seeing just colors, seeing just like blurred things like dark clouds or something around, and seeing that, and feeling some kind of intuitive thoughts that something bad would happen. It wasn't very crazy, but I started seeing that, when I stopped being that, hardcore, going, working, learning and rational, and when I stopped for a moment, be a little bit more intuitive, I would say sensitive, sensitivity, because plenty of people, there are also people who are oversensitive, it's bad too, and I can say that later when I was, 18, 19, I was too sensitive, too feminine, as I meant to say the least. So, right, and I remember then, last year's, I'm 23 right now, and I remember from about being 19 to, let's say, last year or 1.5 years ago, I again started, being more rational and more masculine, because I didn't have balance. When I started rediscovering all of these, I got crazy about that, and it was unhealthy for my personal life, evolution of some sorts. I would say that then I become too feminine. So from being an atheist, so maybe too masculine, then I became too feminine, and then again I was focusing only on this rational part and stuff like that, masculine, and then right now I'm trying to have like a balance of everything. So, but only it is right now at 23. Maybe I started 22 years old, and so it was a very long and very complicated journey of ups and downs, and from coming on extreme on one side to the extreme on the other side.
Wow, man. Brother, I've got so many questions. That's incredible. That's incredible. I mean, I think we all have that, when you were saying that, when you see like the auras and like getting the feelings about people and stuff, I think that is kind of built in all of us.
Natural.
Yeah, it's like a natural ability that humans have. It seems like you can go into a party, for example, and there can be someone there that maybe doesn't like you too much. I don't know if you get this, but like you can like feel their energy,
Yes.
and you can feel that there's something, I know body language, you can tell if someone's like not looking in the eyes and stuff like that, but there
it's
is
again, as
feeling.
everything, partially materialistic, that we are very subconscious about the body language or how people appear, and at the same time, it's about the energy, some kind of frequency or something. I agree totally with you.
So when you were like looking at people, for example, and seeing like colors, like, because obviously some people they can see color around people, and like if it's green it means something, if it's blue it means, is that what you were seeing? Is that kind of
and it was very interesting because I started training that, and it was very fun with my friends and with random people at school doing that. And I remember I wasn't like, I haven't learned every color, what it means. It was before, all of that research. And I remember that I was checking, okay, you're yellow, you're blue, or you have like this blue with some kind of yellow. And I remember we were having fun back then. And I remember they were checking on the phone the meaning of, let's say, blue aura or yellow aura or blue with a bit of yellow aura. And they were saying, wait a minute, it describes how I'm personally. So this was shocking that, I didn't have all the knowledge about what every color meant, but I was, and I think it's, the double check, like in the scientific experiment, that I didn't have knowledge, and these colors approximately were telling how people were, even about, personally, because sometimes we are a bit different on the outside world, but they were saying, wait a minute, this describes everything about me, just the biggest archetypes, we can say, or the biggest motives, energies in our lives, that, oh, this person is that, this person is that. So this was crazy.
Wow. Can you still do that? Can you still see?
Yes, but I'm not training that much. I recently did that on one of my friends, and it took me a bit longer, and I can say from my experience how it looks like. You need to be on, when I was very proficient at that, I didn't need, for the person to stand, let's say, on a casual wall without, any colors on it. I remember I was seeing things, and sometimes, even when I was in the room, let's say I was bored, I finished the exam before, time, everyone was writing the exams. I remember just chilling out, being bored and seeing different energies, even, beyond the bodies, because it's not just that aura is around you, it sometimes goes beyond our different energies and stuff like that. So I remember back a few years ago even seeing like that, but casually, without much preparation, it's just you need a clean background, let's say white wall or something, or even a single color wall. And just as sometimes we are overthinking and we are not focused with our eyes, it's casual experience. Maybe we are driving and we are bored and we are, we are not like focused with our eyes, or maybe we have a little bit, watching behind, and you need to watch like that. and you're watching this person, and first either black or white color, it depends, or maybe first white, then black color appears, just a little bit, I would say centimeter or something, above this person. It's sometimes, not to get distracted, it's very good to put the person backwards, so you're looking at their back, not in front of them, because you may laugh or something, and if you are then becoming focused for a minute, you need to, again defocus and see that. So you see that. You can also do that, by putting your hand like that, and on the white wall, and unfocusing, and then you see, I think first it's like the black, or first the white, and then you see the colors. And sometimes from my own experience, I see that first, black, white, and then it goes into like rainbow, all the colors, but you see that very clearly. It's crazy. And then you see, one color or two colors, or one color with some kind of, maybe not patterns, but you know what I mean, a few yellow or a few of different kind of color marks. And that's how you see that. And the more you focus, the more you can see, the bigger the aura, because initially you see just, a very, very like little bevel around the person, but then you can see like the bigger one, if it's, if the person's aura is like, sometimes it's outside, like crazy, like this person may be very stressed about or nervous or something. Some auras may be very strong in color, some may be very dim. I even remember I got a picture from a friend, just a random picture. It was an era of Snapchat, so everyone was, sending themselves pictures. And I remember, again, first impression, I would just open this photo, and I've seen, dark gray, and immediately, before I wasn't focused like using this method, but just randomly, and I was, whoa, that was, strong experience to me. And then I've heard from this friend that something bad was happening for him this day. The same, for instance, people in love sometimes have like pinkish aura or something. People who are very hardcore rational have like very blue, dark blue. And I remember one more experience of this sort was, I had a friend who was like crazy at maths. He was crazy, everything, like, machine gun doing maths. And I remember I was very bored, a little bit tired. It was very late class, physics or something. I think it was physics, but we were doing maths. Again, maths is connected with physics. And I was sitting behind him, and I remember, what? I was sitting behind him, so there is his head. I remember some kind of blue energy like coming into his head, and immediately he was going, like this. And I think it may prove that, sometimes, this inspiration, we sometimes get this eureka, this inspiration that for do something. Maybe it's not totally outside of us, but it's just, I've seen that, immediately when he, just a moment before he started writing down something like crazy, this maths calculations, I seen like, this was a huge, I think, blue with yellow energy, huge, like here, like coming into his brain or something.
Whoa. So you're,
and it was random.
The whether that's the thoughts, the knowledge, like, are we getting our information
energy
from a higher source? Are we getting our information from the, I don't know, the universe? Who knows?
Or just, the trigger to do something. Maybe we have everything, let's say, inside, but I get like a shot of energy and I'm immediately inspired, or I have some idea.
Yes.
It comes from within me. I think it doesn't mean that it's all outside of us. I think that it's within me, but because of this shot of energy, I may become aware of it more. It's somewhere in the unconscious, let's say, etc. But then you become aware of it.
Interesting. Yeah, because some people describe that feeling as like getting a download. You hear that quite often in the supernatural terms, download of some sort. That's wild, man. So you said you were becoming more feminine. You call it the feminine. And do you think if you'd kind of stayed on that route, stayed down that line, that your what word shall I use? Your
psychic abilities.
Your abilities would grow, yeah. Do you think that would
Yes,
be...
but, we can do parallel to that. And I would say that I was like 80% into this state and I was neglecting like casual life. We need to have casual life. We need to, do some work or do some learning and stuff like that. So it was beyond me, to some extent. And it's not like just, I can take some time every day and still use that. But I see that sometimes it's seasons to life. Sometimes you need to focus on other things. And right now, what should I do with that? There is no practicality for me right now to do that. Maybe, I could be some kind of healer or someone. I remember I don't know, I met a person it was a conspiracy theory, like, I had presentation live in front of 100 people, conspiracy theory, I would say, conference or some sorts. And I remember a person who was psychic, went to me and she said, an old woman, that I was a healer and some kind of that. And I said, maybe yes, and I've told her these stories. So maybe this would be practical, but I don't want, to be like psychic medium healer. I want to do other stuff. And I think that they may be better both on my personal level for me, beneficial, but also beneficial when it comes to, for instance, my research to the bigger, world. And I think that just, having knowledge of these abilities is enough, to sometimes use them for research purposes, when writing something, when talking to you, to inspire people and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say it wasn't practical for me. Maybe for some people this is the root of their life. I don't think it's at least for the moment right now, my purpose, my life path or something. It's just, the ability to show that there is much more than just material stuff.
Yeah, with your research, it must help to open you up to the possibilities. Because as you say, science is very much in compartments. You can't look at the supernatural. But when we look at like Egypt, for example, and things like that, there was definitely more going on there spiritually as well. Like, I think you look at the some of the evidence that we've got with the pyramids and things like that. They were aligned with the stars and all sorts of spiritual stuff that, maybe science switches off from, maybe sometimes, and that's why we're not getting some of the answers. But when you're open to the possibilities that this world is far more magical than we think it is, that must be good for you as well with your research.
Yes.
Sometimes
I have like intuition to go to this place, to this library, check this, bookshelf or something. Or I remember, I used divination methods, so not just like only tarot or something. I just for fun, was checking. I bought myself a tarot card deck, and was just. And I have my own opinion on that, but when it comes to divination, are all the methods, throughout the history, there are different methods in plenty of local cultures of how to, think of and predict the past, predict the future. And I use divination, for instance, opening random book behind me and, seeing some quote or some kind of word or even some kind of number of pages, etc. So I think it's useful for everyday life, but still, again, you need to show, because if you're too out of touch of the material reality, you're also not getting into so many people's ideas, because they call you a charlatan or you're just some kind of idiot or someone. And I think that being on the edge of both of this world, it's often connected to this mythical legendary hero's journey, that the hero is actually on the verge of what is known, the known world that is collapsing, and on the unknown. But the hero is the most important person for transformation at a huge scale, but he's not the wizard. He meets the wizard and he applies both of what is from the old kingdom and from the wizard. He gets some magical weapons or powers in different stories, but he isn't too extreme on that. He's, both on the edge of what is known and what is unknown. And I think it's the best way to, create the biggest change or impact in the world. And if you're too much into like esoterics, they can go, oh, this is some kind of witchcraft or something, this is stupid, people believe in such things, but when you show people the logical side of these things, the material parts, that's why, my book Déjà, because everything already been in last chapters, maybe not last, but before the last, I showed an example of repeated history, and I say that it may be the best first evidence of metaphysical or spiritual based on material evidence, because if history truly repeats itself, and we see that, and it's connected to zodiacal epochs, astrology, maybe it's a sign that there is a reincarnation for example, or some kind of it, that there are some laws beyond material realm that are governing our lives, that we need to sometimes repeat certain cycle, etc. So I want to show people, also the rational, the logical, the material side of things, because all of this spiritual, non-physical stuff have influence, have effects in the material world. And when you show people that, they level by level are becoming more and more aware and more seeing that there is much more to the world. So I think this is my biggest message of inspiration, of showing people the potential that there may be much more. And if I was too much into this feminine, then I wouldn't, impact so many people. The same with being like, let's for example take a person who is extreme conspiracy theorist. It's, this person is often, radicalized in society. Oh, it's idiot, stupid person, very negative. I know a lot of people within this, let's say, extremum, maybe not the most extreme, but being too much on the side of conspiracy theories, they are, people are taking them as not seriously, etc. So you need to have the balance and show people both the light side, the dark side, what is known, what is, basically accepted in the society, and what is, beyond.
Absolutely. And I think it's important for you as well, if you don't want to go on that path, you do what you want to do. You've got to do what feels right for you. As you say, you do get people that become full wizards, and it's out there. I mean, we know that this stuff is real, but you've got your people on the other scale, on the other side of the room, which are like, no, that's crazy. I'm not listening to that. I'm going to switch off. I'm going to stick to science, even though science is very broad, as we said. You said something very interesting at the start, where you said, as humans, we switch off. Maybe we switch off these abilities, maybe as a form of like protection for ourselves. Because if we were seeing all the stuff that's going on around us, the sounds that we can't always hear, that our animals sometimes hear, maybe it wouldn't be good for our environment. It wouldn't be good for us as the human
people
race.
In society, yes. I think it may also be that just, let's say, the casual paradigm, you see there in some cases religious household, or in other cases it's like natural, material, scientific one. I think that maybe even subconsciously we are not aware of it, but we are shutting these things down to fit more the society, because it's the biggest survival thing, to be accepted at least to some extent in the society. If we are outcasts, it's very bad for us, and it's, with all the negative emotions. That's why we all very often are afraid to be rebellious or to have extreme opinions or something, even though we believe in them. So I think it's maybe a natural thing, natural mechanism inside of us, to shut down at least a bit these psychic abilities which are natural to all humans, just because of the households, just because of the society, of our colleagues, of people at work, school.
We'd never work. People would never work if they're in this, they're just living in themselves, maybe a little bit more. I don't know. It's something I say quite a lot on the show. It's when you look into the paranormal, the supernatural, it looks back. Like you seem, once you are open to it, whoever the person is, once you start getting interested in it, looking into it, you start to notice little things around you that, maybe that's, I would have brushed that aside before, but maybe that light that I saw, maybe that shadow that I saw, maybe that was something. And then once you start accepting that, you do seem to start experiencing supernatural. Now you could argue that is our minds as well, manifesting this stuff, but in your case, especially in your case as well, like, it doesn't sound like that's the case to me. You're a very smart young man that didn't kind of want this, to be honest. That's how it seems. But you kind of you just happened in your dreams, it was undeniable for you. You start looking into it, and all of a sudden you're seeing auras, and
I agree with that, and I think that the more, as you said, we are looking at that, it looks back at us because we are more and more open. We reprogram our minds, to be more aware of these things, because for, let's say, 10 years or 20 years we ignore them completely. So our mind is, it's basic adaptations. The same if you are starting learning maths, some kind of maths formulas, we are getting better and better at it, and we are subconsciously, start calculating everything at some some point. So I think it's about reprogramming. That's why we should still be a little bit always skeptical to some extent, because I've also experienced that some things were real supernatural things, but others I was over-interpreting things because I was too much into that. So we should always be skeptical, and we know even biologically it's in our minds, it's called reticular activating system, and it's like a filter for what we are aware of. Because let's say right now when I'm talking to you, I'm aware, let's say, of my thoughts, of my speaking, that I'm sitting here, I feel, let's say, this part of my body. But for instance, if I'm not taking my awareness, I'm not aware of my leg, or I'm not aware of my back that I'm sitting. Only, if maybe if I have some pain in my leg, then I'm aware of it again. Or I'm not aware of everything that's in my room, even if it's within my sight of vision. These things are around, but I'm not aware of, what's this pen or something. And it's natural thing that we cannot be aware of everything at once. It's conservation of energy. Sometimes we meditate, we can broaden our vision, but the same with stress. If we're stressed, our vision and everything is being, shortened. We can focus on, let's say, one thing at the moment. Or when we are in flow, we do not care about everything. We're in flow, let's say in work or in sports. We are only focused on the moment and what is within ourselves and within, what we need to do. And there are different calculations, but I've heard one that every single second, there are about 11 million impressions coming for us. So let's say, one light here, the other light here, you are talking to me, I have feeling of my shirt, of my, let's say, back, etc. So about 11 million different impressions every second. Some people say it's 40,000, but it's a lot. Even 40,000, it's a lot of impressions every single moment, second, or whatever time scale you want to put it. But we are aware of about 40 or 11 of it. As I said, I'm talking to you, I'm aware of my thoughts, of my speaking. Let's say I can feel my body sitting here, but not 100%. I'm shortened when it comes to what I'm aware of. So, and this reticular activating system in our brain is the filter. So from 40,000, let's assume 40,000 impressions, it only gets 40. So it needs to unconsciously think, and depending on the valuation, on our beliefs, it filters what is important for us. So let's say right now it's not important that there are different kinds of spiritual energies in this room. The most important thing for me is to talk to you and to explain these things to you, and that I'm sitting here and just to be here with you. But if my belief was that, okay, I don't care about you speaking to me, I don't care about how I'm talking about, I'm more into spirituality and things like that, or I would have some psychic transmission of some sorts, then my brain or my psyche would be focused on this thing. Or maybe something would be, or maybe I want to go to pee. I would be aware of that, I want to pee, and I wouldn't be aware of so many things within our talking with each other. So I would talk a little bit worse than now. I would be a little bit stressed. I would, because I'm thinking about going to toilet. Basic example, but it works like that.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So, because I kind of think that this is where I am at the moment, anyway. That there is other realms, other realities, whatever you want to call it, going on around us. In our world, they're like intertwined. As you say, we don't see them, because if we did, we'd go crazy. If we were constantly seeing things. But I think that's why we do get glimpses of shadows. We do see things that aren't there sometimes. That we can't explain. Like I saw when I was a young kid, when I was 10 years old, I saw a full-bodied apparition in my room, for example, and that was undeniable for me. It lasted for a long time. I saw it, it was there. Are these things always there? But for whatever reason, in that moment, that everything aligned and I was able to see it. I don't know what that is, but I would go crazy if I was seeing that every night. I know some people claim that they do, and I'm sure they do.
Maybe that's why there is so much psychosis or mental illnesses in our society, because they're real. And in spiritual, niches, groups of people, there is always this case that, these people are casual, but just, let's say their brains or their parts of their mind is filtering differently than casual people. The same with like ADHD, and, there are plenty of different sides. Or, with having iffy personalities, maybe it's, a remembrance remembrance of a previous lifetime that isn't, completely over. This person isn't completely over, so it has two personalities from the previous and from the now or from the future or something.
What do you think of ghosts and things like that? What's your thoughts and opinions on spirits? Do you think they're out there? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they're real in this sense, but I don't know if real as, okay, these are these persons who didn't went to some kind of heavens or afterlife or just staying here, or this may be also as these energies that we are talking about, maybe some kind of memory of, some intense emotions or of this person who was attached to this, kinds of things. Maybe these are even spiritual illusions for us to, get some message to us or to be focused on something. I don't think that, these are in all cases true ghosts, true spirits of people, but in some cases, yeah, maybe that's sure, or maybe it's like part of them, just as in unconscious, in psychology, even, materialistic ones, it's very often said that we have like plenty of this shadow self, for instance. We are not completely, connected with each other. We are partitioned as, psychological part of us is partitioned into different sides. So maybe it's like 5% of the spirit, that cannot leave because of the intense emotions. Like I'm attached to this person or to this place and I cannot leave that. And 5 or 10% of me is still, clinging onto it. So this is my opinion on that.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. Because they say we only use, and I don't know how they know this, but they say we only use like 10% of our brain.
That's often called BS, but...
Okay.
But,
10,
it's...
20% they say sometimes, but I mean, I don't know how they would know that anyway. But maybe if we're not using our whole brain, maybe if we was using our whole brain, we would be flying around. We would be moving objects with our minds. Maybe, I don't know. But you don't think that's the thing, the 20%, 10%?
Different, measures. I think it's more just as right now let's say I'm calm, peaceful, and I'm very aware of everything. But when I'm stressed out, I'm focusing on one thing. I'm very nervous, etc. So I think it's more like that we are, too much. It's, even we think we are not stressed, but we have so many things in our lives, like work, learning, kids, or something, and we have this subconscious blockages that that are draining our attention into these, even if we are not aware of them, and that's why we are not fully in full 100% capacity. And yes, if you're, let's say, not using your mind and body, you're not using because you're always using your brain fully, but it's conserving, let's say, energy, and you're not using full capacity of it. It's different people, even in the materialistic science, neurosurgery, etc., are speaking different things. That one people say it's BS, one not. So, but I think it's more about using the potential of our minds.
So going back to when you was a child and you started getting these memories of hearing things and seeing things, and I know, again, as you said, a lot of kids experience that. That when we're kids, like our pets, like our cats and dogs, that seem to see stuff that we can't see sometimes. Kids seem to have that same sort of ability, whatever it is, openness to it all, maybe. But what do you remember seeing as a child? What were some of the things you remember seeing? Did you see ghosts or anything like that?
I would say it was clear vision and clear audience. Clear audience, so hearing things that were not there. For instance, I was often hearing from... I was living in a small flat when I was a kid. We had like 2-3 rooms, let's say, and I remember I knew that, everyone was sleeping. Let's say I was even a small child, I was sleeping back there with my parents. And I knew there was no one in the other room, and I knew that, it's not possible, for instance, for chairs to be moved. But I heard a casual, chair moving or something, sounds of moving objects from this. It wasn't like from different kinds of apartments or something. No, it was clearly from this room coming out. And, these were, I would say, this clear audience. It wasn't like just I heard true physical phenomena being moved there. No, it was impossible. And I don't know if it were just random things. When it comes to visions, I remember always, I was very scared of dark back then. And I remember, just watching, I was, let's say, very young, and I was sleeping in my parents' room. And I remember, watching, the corridor to the other rooms, let's say. And I remember, seeing different kinds of things, appearing, not appearing, different kinds, maybe not ghosts in the full spectrum of this word, but, something, some kind of energy, some kind of, colors, some kind of orbs or something. And also, yeah, when it comes to orbs, I remember seeing from a very young age, and I thought, it's just casual one. But right now I see that orbs are very often appearing with some kind of messages. Like when you see an orb, like I've always was seeing a blue one, like blue, some kind of bubble or something, not very big, around me very often. And it's interesting that it shows that it's beyond the mind, because sometimes I've seen them with my eyes closed, or sometimes, that they weren't in my sight, like here, for instance. I cannot see it right now, but it was here. And I remember these orbs. Later in life, I figured out that these orbs are rare to some extent, not like every day. And they are very often with some kind of new thought, new thinking, new idea, new message, you could say. But I don't know if it's from outside or just, a signal of, some kind of unconscious thought that just appears to the conscious mind. So that's what I was saying back there.
Interesting, man. So kind of like when you were zoning out as an adult with your friends, when you were like reading their auras, kind of like what you was doing when you was a kid, looking down the corridor and seeing things. Maybe there is something to switching on, focusing, and that's when we can start to see things. It's very interesting, man. It's very interesting. And then obviously you became an atheist, so you switched this off, which is quite often what you hear. As people get a little bit older, they rationalize things a little bit more, and they either kind of continue to believe what they've seen or switch it off, which seems like what you did. You switched it off, and then
I forgot about it. When I was like 12 or 13, I was into my life doing other stuff. So I forgot, it was not important. I was always, almost every kid is, or majority, let's say, of kids are afraid, or either some ghosts, some things under their beds, or of the dark. It's very common, and it's often, said that it's natural, because kids need to, if they are not threatened enough when they're childs, their, subconscious is training them to be aware of the dark, because there may be a tiger or a jaguar coming out, or a bear or something. And there is, to some extent, I agree with that explanation, but only to a certain extent. I think there are things beyond that. But I see from my own even personal experiences that sometimes our rational brains are making things up. Just we are scared of something, and it was just a trigger that our brain interpreted as something dangerous, this primitive part of us. But still, this was beyond, everything.
Yeah. It's like that natural fear of snakes that everyone has, and spiders, snakes and spiders. And really today, I know there's certain parts of the world where if you get bitten by a snake or a spider, you're in big trouble. Even in the UK, there's a poisonous snake, but you're very rare to come across that. It's very rare to see a snake in the wild. I have, but it's very rare. So it's like, why are we so scared of this? It's like built in us from hundreds of years ago.
Yeah, from millions of years of evolution, just as, I see my dog is having also this primitive, sometimes instincts that very often are also misleading him, but, he's scared of that because he thinks it's something dangerous. And I think that every day we see that. The same, even psychologists and, scientists are telling us that we sometimes interpret casual things, like we argue with someone and stuff like that, with these primitive responses, and we are too much in stress. And I think it's, as I said, to some extent natural, but there are some phenomena, some experiences that are totally beyond that.
Have you had any experiences recently where you've seen orbs and stuff like that? Has there been?
But happens. It's not that very often like that. But I, was seeing orbs, let's say, in the last 1 year or 2 years, but not that very often, because, as I said, I was too much. Let's say I maxed out this potential because I was too heavy onto that, and then I needed to focus on the casual, materialistic living, rationality, logic. I needed to expand on that. So let's say I was 80% focused on this side and only 20% on this spirituality. But still, sometimes I had, even after that, some crazy dreams that I also see as spiritual, not just, casual dreams. And I always had, like, these of dream journals. I have them, but I'm not. For the last few years, I haven't been, writing every dream down because it was interrupting my sleep. Because okay, you need to wake up, remember, write thing down, and then maybe it's hard to go back to sleep. So, but I remember I have like plenty of dream journals to show you just how much it is. This is part of them, like full of 60, 80 pages of the journals, and everything. I don't know if you see they are all with
man, and
things written down. So, and in just a few years, I don't know, maybe this is 4 or 3 years of such journals.
Wow. So for the listeners, that you've got like a good, what was it, 8 books there fill up?
Yeah, or more. Wait.
Filled up with
These
dreams.
Are 60 A5, format A5. These are 60, 80 pages, lots of 80 pages, and it is 1, 2, 3, yeah, 8 of them here, but I have a little more, like 2 more there I see, but I just got this.
Yeah, but it shows you how much it's impacted you to do that as well. Because I mean, dreams are strange, man. I used to just think dreams were like, all right, dreams can get a little bit weird sometimes, but they're just dreams. And that is where I used to. But now I think there's so much more to dreams. I really do. And maybe not every dream, because you do sometimes wake up and have some memory of a dream, but it's gone in seconds. You're like, oh, what was it? What did I dream? But then sometimes you wake up from a dream and it's like,
life-changing.
I've lived another life somewhere else. I was doing this job, and it's so in depth, and then it affects you. Like you can actually you get got that emotion.
I understand. Even if it affects you, I see that some dreams are just psychological. And psychologists, psychiatrists are saying you that, for instance, unresolved emotions. And that's why you sometimes change, because you resolve in the dream casual emotions. And from my own experiences, and when it comes to this writing down these dreams, I remember having 6 to 8 dreams a night sometimes. And I think it's every day. Like we have at least 5, 6 dreams, 7 maybe 9, but we do not remember them. And let's start with this. What we remember, what's life-changing. I see that some dreams are beyond of, just mind stuff, but I see just some dreams are, things that our mind is just, processing after a huge day or something, very intense moment in our lives. I see these dreams, and they can also be, as you said, life-changing, but it's not about life-changing, because sometimes I feel I had some experiences, again, déjà vu. I think déjà vu is either things that, happened, let's say, in the past, in previous lifetimes or something like that, or they happened in dreams or on astral plane, some people would say, because sometimes I don't remember a particular dream, but only when there is a trigger in real life. For instance, this prophetic dream, it happens again. I then wait a second, I didn't remember, and I feel that approximately 2 weeks ago I had such dream, but I haven't remembered it. And it was, this same thing. So it's not about remembering or life-changing, it's just, if you dream a lot and you try to remember your dreams and write them down and even analyze them, I remember, analyzing these journals 3 years after that, let's say, a journal of 3 years after that, and analyzing it, you see so many patterns. Sometimes you see you feel so heavy with emotions. Sometimes you need to resolve that. Sometimes, it's unconscious, it's just casual dream journal, some kind of dreams for 4 or 3 years ago. But I feel, I feel strange, I feel scared or something, and I look at it and I'm shocked. It's beyond my awareness, beyond my just conscious mind. And sometimes I see, and I need to analyze for hours this dream journal and process this old emotions, and have this personal transformation. But it's crazy.
It's interesting, man. It's very interesting. When you had the dream, say for example with your friend, and you had this moment already in a dream, you'd had this conversation, you were wearing these clothes, you'd seen this before. Did you ever tell your friend that? And did they ever have the same experience?
Yeah, sometimes. And I had only once experienced that we had some kind of collective dreams with other friends, but it was before that, when I was like 14, 15 or something. And that was just for fun. We were having fun like we were kids. Maybe even if it was like 13, 12 or something, we were just, outside playing with friends, like 2 or 3 other friends. And I remember I was just, I've dreamt that, we were here and we were doing that. Another friend, wait, I had the same dream like the same night before. And the other said, like at least 2 other people, so 3 altogether, had similar similar dream to that. So I experienced it once before, this analysis, this dream journaling when I was a kid. But I think that, yes, it's to some extent real, but I do not think that all of these deja vu experiences that we are reliving something from the dream can be with other persons, because maybe it's not necessary for the other person to remember that. Maybe it's just a trigger for you. It's something important for you to, for your transformation. But maybe this other person is just, bystander that, just casually is within this dream. So I don't think it's all about that. I even remember meeting people within my dreams, and I've talked with a few people about that, meeting person that I don't know. For instance, a distant relative of my friend, but a friend that is just a colleague from class, nothing like personal. I don't know their family at all. I just, hey, on the, the corridor between the classes, but it's not like a very close friend. I don't know anything about this person, personal life, family or something. But I have a dream that, okay, this is this relative of this person, and I'm meeting this person in my dream, and let's say it's, I see some distinguished features of this person, like curly hair or something, being very tall, curly hair and stuff like that, very, it's in my mind in this dream. And then I'm seeing this person, and it was like signing some documents, and with relatives, with family at school. And I see this person, and I say, wait a second, this is this person. But I don't see, my friend with this person. But it's, a queue for signing some kinds of documents. So I'm in queue after this person. And then I see it's signing with the same surname. And I know it's family of that person, but that person was just, ill or something sick that he couldn't attend, this signing. Just, family was needed, it was like middle high school or something. And I was, wait a second, this was this person. I had a dream that this was relative of this person. I didn't know anything about this person. It wasn't that this person was very similar to my friend or something. No, it was completely out of, any kind of connection.
Yeah. So how can you explain that? How can you explain that, man? Wow. I mean, deja vu itself, it's such a weird feeling. It's something we all have as humans. I think most of us get that feeling.
Yeah.
You walk into a room, I've done this before. I've been here before. It's like a feeling when it happens. It's such a strange sensation, and there's got to be something to it, man. There's so much more to this world, as we say. It's fascinating. It is fascinating.
Yeah. Also, when it comes to to finish these dreams and to get our viewers to more information, maybe more inspiration, I also see different kinds of dreams, but sometimes mystical dreams, out of the reality dreams. For instance, I had an experience that, again, because when, I started having it, okay, it was beyond our minds, but maybe, I was always are a little bit doubtful about that. But an experience that changed my doubt that, there is for sure something more than just, we are biological machines, evolution, and stuff like that, was a dream in which, I had a book. I was, experiencing a book in my dream, and I remember at the moment of this dream, I just needed, to look or to touch this book, and I knew everything in this book. It was experience out of the bounds of our reality, because even if I, maybe I know everything about particular book behind me or about my own, I cannot right now recite every single word. But I remember in this feeling, I could recite everything. I knew every single word, every single thing, 100%, from cover to cover. I was shocked, and I didn't need to open this book. I haven't remembered, unfortunately, everything from this book, because maybe it was valuable or something. It was about something, again, connected to my research 12,000 years ago, something with Jesus, but I don't remember it 100%. But this was thing that, it was completely, let's say I'm holding this book, and right now I can cite you what is on page 100, what is on page 20, what is, all about, without reading. Let's say even I haven't read this book, I haven't read this book, and I can tell you everything. So this was some kind of experience, and it was interesting.
Whoa.
Because at that moment I remembered literally everything. It was so much knowledge. Let's say it was a book of like 3 other books. Let's say it was so huge, big book, like 3 other books. I could everything. I remember even a moment after I woke up, I remembered everything, and I was shocked. I've written down, I remember, as I said, something 12,000 years ago. Jesus, I remember everything. But then after just a few minutes, before, 3 or 5 minutes before I went back to sleep again, I was, wait a minute, I don't remember anything. What is going on? So crazy thing.
That is wild, man. So you remembered it obviously in the dream. It's quite incredible to have that sensation, but then to wake up and to still remember it, that's kind of wild.
Yeah, for a moment, like for a minute or half a minute or something. And everything, it was beyond even right now. Let's say I have to analyze, for instance, for university or for, classes, a book. And I need to, or a lecture for something. I am not able right now to learn a book by heart like that. Even if we had some recitations in classes when I was a kid or something, or people recite Quran, it's a completely different kind of knowledge because it's on multiple level. It's not like you just remember and you can recite everything, but you both understand it and both see it to some extent psychically. No, it's beyond. Even if I tried, even if I spent, let's say, week or a year analyzing a book, I would never know so much. I even don't know so much about my own book that I've written, Crazy.
That is incredible. So can you remember where this took place in the dream? Like what?
I think it wasn't very important in this dream. I had this book. There was like another person, maybe some kind of angel, spirit guide or something, not like a person, like a human being, something like that. But the surroundings were not important at all. I compare it, to touching the book and knowing everything, but I haven't felt even touching this book. There was this book, in my vision, and I haven't even opened it, this book, and it was like tapping psychically into this book and again knowing everything. And it was beyond. I would even compare it to knowing every thought that the author of this book had when he was writing it, and everything like alternate, like it was a much deeper. As I said, I could never do that in physical life. Maybe in the future I'll have some such abilities, psychic abilities, that I would be able to, but it was beyond everything. And that changed my, there are things that are beyond, because I even thought to myself, okay, but what if it's just a feeling of my brain, of my body, we can have I can imagine feeling of knowing everything in this book. We can imagine feeling that. But it was beyond, because I had this knowledge, and again, this knowledge, maybe, as I said, it was connected. I remember 12,000 years ago, Jesus, something like that. I remember some parts that I know about, but these were things that were out of my knowledge, out of my research, out of, any kind of idea that I've encountered in my life. Like, let's say something, or in a different language or something, or some kind of knowledge that I don't know about, I don't know, physics or something, or history, that I never thought about, something that is unknown completely. And was for a brief moment known. Yeah, it was crazy. And, I'm not that doubtful from that moment on. It was 2-3 years ago.
So maybe that's still in there somewhere. Like we said, we these memories get put to the back of our mind, and there's a trigger, and we're like, oh, and it comes. Maybe it's still. I mean, that's a lot of knowledge to keep. I know you're a very smart guy. That's a lot of knowledge.
You don't need to tell me. I'm not like, I don't try to be egoistic or something. Yeah, but what I'm thinking about, maybe that's how we write books even, maybe I had to be honest, when I was writing my own, I used some kind of flow that, when I started, it was going bad, but then, one full chapter, I wrote it at once and then later edited it for sure. But, the whole chapter, 80% or 70% of it, I could write, on a single sitting. But I think that maybe, even again, maybe we have these ideas, just as Plato was telling us about, that there are perfect ideas, so this perfect full book with everything, all the knowledge even behind what the author was thinking about, and maybe we are writing down or creating, or maybe talking in this podcast, or maybe some kind of different artistic thing that maybe it's all already there, and we are just, slowly, and to some extent, maybe we are not able to fully get this information, because as I said, I don't know that much about my book as in this book in my dream, but maybe in 50 or 60% I tapped into something like that, or other people are tapping, and there are some experiences that are from recorded history about people having visions, even scientific discoveries being made in a vision or in a dream. So I think that it may be to some extent like that. So maybe maybe it will be my future book, or maybe it will be someone other future book that I just tapped into.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Again, that goes back to when people talk about getting the downloads. You know,
Yeah.
this wealth of information that seems to come from nowhere, whether it's in a dream or like, you know, it just happens. It's very strange, man. It's very strange.
Yeah, but I also think that these downloads may not be from the outside. These
Mm-hmm.
downloads, as in this example with this math friend of mine who, you know, got like stricken by lightning bolt of energy and then started. I think that this may be just triggers of opening into this kind. Maybe it's all within us subconsciously. Just as you know, plenty of people can under hypnosis remember all of their past lifetimes. Let's say thousands. Some people have thousands, some people less of lifetimes before. And under hypnosis, they remember everything. So I think that this downloads or this, you know, shots of energy may be only like shots of inspiration or shots of, you know, huge emotions or, you know, of motivation and stuff like that to just open us for a brief second, and we can, you know, access this, what is hidden within ourselves already.
Yeah, man. So there's no, you can't remember what was in that book now.
Only a few. No, I can't. I only remember that it was a bit huge. I would say like 2-3 books of huge, but it was in one format. I would say something like that, like something like a book of 800 pages of a format similar to, let's say, something like that, bigger than my
a
book.
big book.
And I remember it was about, you know, Jesus 12,000 years ago. I think something to Jesus it was connected to, like that, you know, it was all before that, just as, you know, this conspiracy theories that, you know, Jesus was inspired by previous people, but it was more that this Jesus person, this, you know, soul, or this person, who we call Jesus, was already 12,000 years ago, but I don't remember more about that. But it was full book, you know, with everything, with introduction, with, you know, ending, logical things, and also other, it was like, let's say my one chapter is about lost civilizations, and it's a huge thing to my book, but one chapter is fully focused on that. And I would say that what I'm talking to you right now is just a few basic ideas from 2 chapters of this book, but there is more to that book that was, you know, connected to this 2 thoughts, like 12,000 years ago, Jesus coming back, that it's all been there already, but, you know, it's just like 1% of everything.
Maybe you got the answers to everything in that dream.
Maybe we have all the answers.
That's all the answers. We need to tap back in, man. Wow. I mean,
you know, meditate, take some ayahuasca or something, or some kind of, I don't know, other drugs.
Man. You could have all the answers there already.
But maybe it's not good for us as humanity to have all the answers right now. Just as with channelings, you know, there are plenty of channeled. I have even some channeled books, fully channeled by different entities, even not like persons themselves, but different entities. And you know, they have strange knowledge that is again beyond the knowledge of humanity or even people. But even sometimes in this book, this, you know, entities are telling that we cannot tell you everything because it's bad for your current place that you're living in. So maybe we cannot know everything, and maybe we can only take the glimpses. Or maybe, you know, we are in such a materialistic life, it would be bad if, you know, let's say I would channel all the physics, all the maths and everything, you know, would be solved, and there would be, you know, no science needed anymore. Maybe it's bad for us. Or maybe we only need to have such inspirations, such, you know, things, okay, Jesus 12,000 years ago or something like that, and then research it. And ourselves during, you know, this journey of our lifetimes, we need to came to these conclusions on our own with research, reading books, some artifacts, some new discoveries, because maybe that's, you know, simulation, let's say. If we see that, and we see that from not only personal experiences, but from plenty of different kinds of sources, that, you know, beyond we are huge, powerful spiritual beings that we know almost everything about, you know, we can shapeshift, levitate, materialize things into existence, etc. And I think that maybe this world, this simulation, let's say, this matrix, it's all about that, okay, I want to, you know, be this Indiana Jones and discover that, or I want to be this mad scientist and, you know, get this discovery going on. And maybe that's why, because I say very often, because this world is very limited. Why it's limited? Because maybe without any limitations it would be boring, you know, if everything was, okay, I will have it right now, this, everything, and there is no limitation, there is, you know, infinity of forms, etc. Maybe that's why we are here, maybe that's why reincarnation, if it's real or not, maybe that's why, you know, it is there, to, there is very often in spiritual circles that, it's God experiencing itself through different forms, like through different souls. Maybe it's like that. Maybe God, this is this, basic form, consciousness or something in us too, or in everything that there is. Maybe, it's infinite, because imagine infinity. It would be, infinite forms, not only like infinity, like all the scenarios in my lifetime as a person, but also, infinite versions of me, infinite, people, and also infinite species, because, I'm just one species, kind of species, and I'm limited, I cannot have like third hand right now, we are such species, we are limited. Maybe the limitation is there, because without it, it's like infinity. It's very often, in mathematics, you're approaching infinity on the plus side and on the minus side. So actually, 0 or minus infinity is the same as plus infinity to some extent. Everything is also nothing. The age-old philosophical question, why there is something rather than nothing. Because, maybe infinity is also nothing. So that's why we need to have some boundaries, some limitations to have form even. It's even, within ancient cosmology, we want in this conversation, it's being long, won't talk about Atlantis and other stuff, just skip on spirituality. So just, a historical side note, in plenty of ancient cosmologies, there is this mention that, there is this first division as yin-yang, white and black, from infinity. In Egypt, there is, the primeval god, which is not like other gods like Osiris or Thoth, that is this person with head of an ibis or someone. No, the first god Atum in ancient Egypt was not to be described. They couldn't describe it because this was the god before any form, and he was in the infinite ocean of infinite possibilities, and from these possibilities, by using thought and word, he created forms. So maybe, within infinity there are no forms, and that's why there are these limited worlds like ours, or an other kind of multiverse, parallel universe, to experience different forms, because in infinity there cannot be form. Because there isn't any kind of limitation. In order to have form, let's say my hand, you need to have this, border around my fingers, because there wouldn't be a hand. Or in order to have physical stuff like this desk I'm sitting on, or chair, or everything, we need to have some form, some limitation around our hand or around our desk or something to have this form. That's what Plato was telling us with this world of ideas, that there are infinite, perfect ideas, but here in this material world, nothing is perfect. If we want a perfect, perfect, let's say, sphere, okay, it looks like very good polished sphere, but if we zoom it infinitely, it won't be, atoms would be, not polished ideally perfectly. The same within the Hindu thought, the same, that Brahman, that cannot be described, it's the source, the consciousness, it's within, the realms of infinity. This mention of infinite waters, the same with the ancient Sumerian cosmology, Enuma Elish, that, the first gods are in this infinite waters, and that's, from their marriages, there is this first god within the infinite realm, and there are different kinds of, hierarchies of gods, sons of this god, and then, grandchildren, etc. So I think that, they are alluding to that idea that at the basic form, even beyond material world, beyond anything metaphysical, beyond souls, there may be infinity, no boundaries, and maybe this source god, infinity, everything that exists is making divisions within ourselves, just as, these gods are, there is one god, there are 2 gods after him, and there are 4 gods, 8 gods, etc. Or in the Greeks, at the beginning was the chaos, and then there were different kinds of gods, they were fighting, they were having children, etc. And I think that this is a metaphor, primitive, but a metaphor of division. Let's say infinity divided into 2, like yin-yang, black and white, or feminine and masculine. Very often in spiritual and religious ideas, there is that before either people, angels, or spiritual beings or were hermaphrodites, so they weren't like masculine and feminine, but they were both, and there was division into masculine and feminine to, have some maybe fun in life, or to have some things that were distinguished. And I think that it's, goes into, infinity dividing into 2, 4, 8, just, as famous fractal patterns, which can be found everywhere. I think that there are the evidence for that. So that's my theory of everything.
Interesting, man. It's so interesting. And you're right, because when you talk to people that, for example, have near-death experiences, and for a few seconds they're in another realm, another world, heaven, whatever you want to call it. They all pretty much describe it the same. Like it's not their physical body. They're in this amazing place where it feels amazing. Everything's there. Everything's there all at once. Time is irrelevant. How we perceive time is no more, which kind of makes sense of the spirit world. Everything in our world right now is based on time. Time. We got to do this on that time, this and that. We go to sleep at that time. We get up at that. It's all time. And in that world where nothing is it's just pure peace and everything's there. We've got everything, but nothing's going to be built. Nothing's going to be improved, which is maybe what we need in this realm where we are right now. We are growing. We're evolving. We are constantly building new things. AI, whether that's good or bad. Technology is getting bigger and bigger. Maybe as with what you've looked into, we have got to a certain stage in our evolution before, been wiped out, and we're building again. And maybe that's happened multiple times. Who knows?
Maybe it's like a game, let's say people play games. I want to play games. I want to play some kind of shooting game or some kind of strategic game. So maybe that's why everything is happening again and again. Let's say incarnation is like a game. Okay, I want to incarnate. I want to be Alexander the Great, let's say, or Napoleon or someone. And let's say in one lifetime, I wanted that in this level, but I got distracted and I haven't made my karma. So what I was meant to do in this lifetime, I haven't maximized it. I haven't reached my full potential. So I'm in similar circumstances, but in completely different epoch, different technology, reincarnating again to do that. And in my book, at the finishing chapters, 8th or 9th, I'm showing proof that, there is evidence for cyclical history, and I believe it's like that people need to reincarnate again, groups of people, to relive these things, maybe to make better decisions, maybe, to fulfill the potential, and I think that's how it looks like. And unfortunately, it's too much, to talk here about the cyclical universe. I think in the next one, we could talk about, as you said, Atlantis, Anunnaki, and maybe cyclical time too, because I think this one solely focused on spiritual, metaphysical. It's a very, very good one.
Absolutely, brother. I mean, as you say, before we started talking, we said we were going to maybe go Atlantis, Anunnaki, start with the spiritual. And I had a feeling we might be too long in the spiritual, but it's been absolutely fascinating. I mean, maybe this
enjoyed it too.
I really enjoyed it, man. Super interesting. And I really think that maybe you're going back to what you're saying about this could be like a giant Sims game. You ever play Sims? That game Sims?
I know this game, but I haven't played it personally. Some cousins were playing, but I know what
giant Sims games. They're playing us, and then when they get bored of it, we're going to start a new one. We'll wipe them out.
yeah. Actually, for the ending about resets of civilization and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Already 4,000 years ago in the Epic of Atrahasis, there is a mention that humanity was to some kind of gods of the famous Anunnaki was too much. They were irritated by humanity, They wanted. That's why there was this great flood, and that's why humanity was to a large extent, but not fully destroyed. Because they were bored about humans. They were too much irritating for the gods. I don't want them anymore. Let's destroy them.
Let's start the game again. Let's restart. We'll start
exactly.
fresh.
Maybe that's why we shouldn't be that much attached to the material world, to wars and why bad things happen, because maybe on a bigger level, and plenty of people in spiritual communities, after near-death experiences, spiritual experiences are talking about that maybe bad thing in your life was bad from your personal view here, limited within your body, but on a bigger level, it wasn't bad at all. But it's not like to say everything that's bad is good. No, of course not. But, from some bad events in our lives can be good on another level.
There can be positives. From every negative, you can find positives. Very, very interesting, brother. Thank you so much. Absolutely fascinating conversation. Again, thank you. Do you want to tell the listeners where they can find you, where they can get your book?
Just type or copy and paste my name and surname. You'll find me on many interviews all over the world, on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and my book is Déjà Vu, has everything already been again, and you can find it on Amazon, US, UK, Canada, Mexico, and plenty of others, Australia. And and that's where you can find the English version. vision. So thank you once again. I really enjoyed it, and I always tell people, because it's true, that throughout such conversations as ours today, I'm connecting more dots than I would do on my own, with my research. It's often like, oh, we are talking, you're asking questions, we are thinking about different things, different threads, and as you've seen today, I think we created a theory of everything of some sorts based on both metaphysical and physical evidence, which is, I think, a very good thing.
I think we've solved it all, brother.
To some extent, of course.
We're getting the ideas. But next time we've got to do Atlantis. We'll do that next time. Thank you so much again for your time.
Thank
brother.
you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you so much for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, share it where you can. That is a great way to support the podcast. We'll be back very soon for more freaky conversations. In the meantime, stay safe and keep it freaky. Bye for now. Thank you very much, brother.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. That's why I said, we should finish right now, because, later it wouldn't be that good. So
yeah,
I think it was, enough.
Man. Thank you so much, brother. You're a legend. Thank you very much, bro.
All the